Hey everybody, Eric Dorward here at the Spartan Rocketry Club, and it is time to finish the build here of my Estes Super Vega. So the painting is done, clear coat went on pretty well, no runs or anything like that, no blistering, so that's nice. The decals seem to be pretty well protected. Even the one that was, I think it's this one, maybe the other three, that was a little dodgy coming off the sheet, they seem pretty good. So that just leaves the last bit of assembling the retrieval recovery system. So I'll put this away for a moment. There's two things that need to be done. One is the parachute, and the other is the shock cord. So the parachute, the parachute I have to assemble. I already started cutting it out because, that's actually the first step. But this is rather kind of silly, time consuming. The instructions actually are printed right on the chute itself, as well as in the instruction guide, but the first bit is cut it out. For whatever reason, this is kind of a slow go, and it's not easy to cut through plastic like this. It doesn't really relish being cut, so it's kind of a slow go, which is why I already did most of it. Just do be careful, like that just folded over. It would be really bad if it folded over and I cut through part that didn't need to be cut through. So I don't know how many times I'm going to use this chute. This might be one of those situations where I do it once, just once, because this is this is a huge chute, no denying it, and it needs a big chute because it's pretty heavy and it's pretty big. But this one feels like I don't know how well I trust the old materials. So this one might be a situation where I replace it and go over to using, that's fine, using a nylon chute. It'll be a pretty expensive nylon chute to be this big, but it might be worth it. Yeah, it looks like, is it 24 inch? It's a little bigger than that. Yeah, it might be 24 this way. I don't exactly know how they measure it, but it's pretty big. So maybe a 30-inch chute nylon. Anyway, so the next part is I have to put the shroud lines in, and the shroud lines have come in this. They're all taped together, so I have to get them out of the tape. There we go. Just make sure everything is out. Now, these are not three separate lines, it's a big line. The instructions actually, the instructions that are printed on this say to cut into thirds. The instructions that are in the instruction manual are kind enough to tell me that means I need 47 inches. So, okay. My ruler is 2 feet long, so that'd be 48 inches. So we'll say right about here. We would like this to be exactly thirds, but not likely to get that, honestly. And it's not that super important, so long as they're pretty close. And this has tangled nicely. Some of that might have been the fact that it was taped. The other part of it was me not being careful. So, okay. I am going to measure the last bit to see how long it is. I'm not just going to assume that it's the right length. Although, if it is significantly longer, which it is, I guess I'll just trim it. It gives me a little bit of excess. All right, so excess, don't need that. All right, now the chute construction part. Oops. they've given me these little reinforcement rings, and they've shown me exactly where to put the thread. So I'm going to grab one. Hopefully these are still pretty sticky. And I'm going to, the instructions actually show to like curl the thread a little bit. So we'll do that. And then put the sticker on top. And hopefully that'll hold. Now, because all three of these are the same length, it means that we have to run them right next to each other. A lot of more modern Estes chutes that are pre-made have two short shroud lines and one long one, because the long one goes through the midsection. The benefit to that is that you're not going to get shroud lines that cross over, which you'll see with this. It is unavoidable that you will get a point where the shroud lines end up crossing if you do it. Sorry, if you choose to do the shroud lines that are always just next to each other. This, by the way, was like build your own parachute was standard operating procedure for kits for quite a while. I have to say, I don't miss it. I like having them pre-assembled. It cuts down on time, obviously, and I suspect that the pre-assembled chutes are probably of better quality than what I am producing myself. The other thing too is, you can see some of the cuts here are pretty ratty. It's nice to be able to use nylon, honestly. I mean, it's a superior product. It's not going to tear the way this plastic can tear. It can take a lot of abuse. It can also, it doesn't, it's not impervious to heat, but, if you look at these things funny, you can melt them. And, if your parachute melts even a little bit, if it gets hot enough that the plastic melts and sticks together, well, then best case scenario is the chute won't fully open. It'll open, but it won't open the whole way. And that can be, it's not obviously not as bad as a total chute failure, but it's not good, by any stretch of the imagination. All right, so here's the nose cone. I'm going to grab one of these barrel swivels I use for parachutes for a lot of reasons. If for no other reason in this case, then it'll be easy to replace this should I need to. All right, so shroud lines are all gathered up. I'm going to kind of, not exactly pull it taut, but put a little bit of tension into it. Okay, see, well, it's hard to tell here, but there we go. See, this crossed right here. None of the other ones did, but that one did. And that's unavoidable, unfortunately, because if you put the shroud lines all next to each other and you don't have one that goes across the middle, you're going to end up with one shroud line that ends up crossing, and it won't quite open as well as it could, perhaps, but hopefully it won't matter. All right, might as well just lock that in and reclasp. Some of these are a lot harder to use than others. This one, I don't know, for whatever reason, slightly tricky. There we go. All right, so that's reclasped. This is good to go. I'm just going to move this for the time being. I am going to need the nose cone again very shortly. And now the other thing that needs to be done is I need to deal with the shock cords. So this part should look pretty familiar. This is the same Estes shock cord mount that's been in kits since time immemorial. It's a trapezoid. You chop it out, and you put your shock cord in. Now, the problem is, if you recall way back at the beginning of all this, I threw the shock cord out because it's like 30-year-old elastic, and I have no expectation that it's going to still be elastic. So instead, I have a whole bunch of Kevlar thread here, and I'm going to use this for the shock cord instead. Now, it'd be nice if I could get the starting point started here. I think that's a starting point. Oh, no, it wasn't. Here we go. All right, so this is really tough stuff. It is fire resistant, but not fireproof, which is a nice perk. It's pretty cheap, and it's really pretty indestructible. I'm going to use a lot of this just because I'm going to use, I don't know, like 5 feet of it, I think. I will actually measure it just to kind of gauge how much I'm spooling off. This is 2 feet long, right? So there's 4 feet, and I'll spool out another foot or so, and then I'll cut it. This stuff is rather difficult to cut, by the way. There we go. All right, so this you can basically treat this the same as you would a shock cord, to an elastic shock cord to some degree anyway. I am actually going to kind of fold it over when I put it in here, because if there is a downside, it's that there's not a lot to this, right? There's it doesn't have a lot of surface area, especially compared to a big flat piece of elastic. So I'm going to kind of make like a little S coil, serpentine coil here, and I'm going to glue that down to try to get a bit more purchase there. I'm not really worried about this part, honestly. It's just, it's nice to have a little extra. And then once that's taken care of, the rest of this should go pretty much the same as it would with a usual. Actually, that kind of snuck out, didn't it? Let's put that back in. And then we'll fold it over. The cord itself is quite stiff, so there are some minor irritations that, like the shape that it was in, it really wants to remain in that shape because it does, and that's not elastic, that's for sure. All right, so that should basically be good, one would hope. It seems pretty durable. All right, so I'm going to grab the rocket as per usual, a little bit of glue on this. Now, I did, by the way, I considered building this, the shock cord right into the motor mount, which is actually, that's kind of like top-notch construction, right? Because if you build it into the motor mount, it's anchored really, really well. So this is just the strength of this mount is how well the glue holds. If you tie it right into the motor mount, then there's a whole lot more holding it in place. It does expose the shock cord to the ejection charge, which is potentially a problem, except remember this stuff is somewhat fire resistant. So it can take that kind of abuse probably. Anyway, this will do probably as well. There is a downside to using this, and that is when the shock cord kicks out and there's a lot of force slamming the shock cord into the side of the tube here, you can get damage to the tube, which it tends to be called zippering among community. Basically, it means the tube is going to start to unwind itself, which is a problem. Now, there is a way to deal with that. I don't think I'm going to do it just quite yet, but you can break out some CA glue. This stuff is kind of just like the regular viscosity. That will do fine. You could also use a lighter dilution of it, which you'd have to buy. Like, don't try to dilute it yourself. Um, but anyway, you just put a thin layer around maybe like the first half inch of the tube, and that'll really reinforce it. Adding the glue really does strengthen up the bond or the cardboard. So that's an option too. I'm going to not do that for the time being. Um, Hopefully, I won't regret that. Anyway, all right. So the glue is at least started to set up. I'm not going to put the glue, or I'm not going to put the nose cone in for a while. It shouldn't actually be an issue, but yeah, the glue is far enough down in the rocket body that it shouldn't make any difference. But the last little bit here is I need to tie this up. Now, like I said, this stuff is pretty stiff, and it's not like tying thread. I mean, the knots, I guess, work the same way, but the stuff is so stiff, it it's hard to get it as tight as you would expect to be able to do if you were just tying up like a piece of thread. So do pull it as tightly as you can. If that takes going a little bit more slowly, then so be it. And I have to say too, this stuff has started to unbraid. You can see it's starting to come apart on the end that I cut. So probably only going to get one more knot in here, and I'm going to have to kind of read. I think it was actually braided the other way. Let's try spinning it just back together. There we go. Yeah, this is probably it for being able to tie in an extra knot. Yeah, it didn't go particularly well in that last knot, but it should be all right. Oh no, it just totally undid itself. Well, that's annoying. Give this one more try. But I do have 2 knots in it, and that'll probably be adequate. Just trying to grab. There we go. There, I got it all that time. All right. Now, like I said, it doesn't grip the way that string would. So I'm going to lock it in place. I'm going to just put the smallest little dot of CA glue just on the knot and no place else. Certainly not on the clasp that I just put on, not on the tube, nothing like that. All right, that should at least lock the knot in place. All right, that takes care of it. So now we've got an E-powered Super Vega from like 1998 or something like that. Hopefully ready to fly. Hopefully the parachute will hold. I'm really looking forward to flying this. I think this is a really nice looking kit. I hope that our good friends at Estes decide to bring this one back because it is kind of a classic, maybe with some more modern amenities to it. But anyway, this has been a lot of fun. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next series.